Hi children, hope you all fine at home. Today we'll learn economics second chapter, sectors of the Indian economy. Children, when you hear the word economy, and immediately we'll recall GDP, gross domestic product, which we studied in the previous class. Here you will find people are engaged in various activities. Some are economic activities, some are non-economic activities. Some of these are activities producing goods, some others are producing services. These activities are happening around us every minute. जैसे हम देख सकते हैं अपने जो अगल बगल, जैसे ही आप घर से बाहर निकलेंगे बहुत सारा एक्टिविटीज़ चल रहा होगा और हम देखते हैं कि लोग तरह तरह के काम में बिजी हैं. तो कुछ लोग काम करने से उनको पैसा मिलता है, इसे हम कहते हैं इकोनॉमिक एक्टिविटीज़. लाइक एक डॉक्टर अपना क्लिनिक पे जाता है और पेशेंट्स को ट्रीटमेंट देता है जिससे उनको पैसा मिलता है, इसे हम कहते हैं इकोनॉमिक एक्टिविटी. और वही डॉक्टर अपने घर पे अपना परिवार फैमिली मेम्बर्स को ट्रीटमेंट देता है, वहाँ से वो किसी तरह का पैसा चार्ज नहीं करता, इसे हम नॉन इकोनॉमिक एक्टिविटी कहते हैं. Some are producing goods, some are producing services. One way of doing this is to group them, classifying them using some important criteria. उस क्राइटेरिया से हम बताएंगे कि ये किस सेक्टर में आता है. These groups are also called sectors. Now we talk about economic activity. The activity concerned with production of goods and services and hence earning of income is known as economic activity. वो आप जॉब, कुछ लोग जॉब करते होंगे, some are professions, some occasion and some business, etc. so on. So people are engaged in one or the other activity from which they get money. That is called economic activity. This economy is classified into three sectors. On the basis of economic activity, these sectors has been divided into three. First one is primary sector, second one secondary sector, third one is tertiary sector. Now children will see what is primary sector. In this chapter, sectors of Indian economy, there we have been divided into three parts. First one is on the basis of nature of job, on the basis of working condition, and third one on the basis of ownership. So the economy has been classified into three parts. On the basis of nature of job, there are three again: primary sector, secondary sector and tertiary sector. On the basis of working condition, organized sector, unorganized sector. A third one on the basis of ownership, there are two types. One is private sector, second one is public sector. So students, here we start with the primary sector. Primary sector, where economic activity is centered from extraction of raw materials from Mother Earth, be it agriculture, forestry, fishing, mining or quarrying. In India, agriculture is the biggest example of the primary sector. However, forestry and fishing can also be cited as other examples of this particular sector. This sector is also known as agriculture and related sector. So children, agriculture sector is very important for our country. Since independence, most of the people, more than 70% of the people are engaged in agriculture sector. Because in those days, industries was not much in India. So later, after industrial revolution, more and more industries has come up. So here we talk about agriculture. In class 9th, we studied about the village Palampur. In that, to increase the production of agriculture products, we use multiple cropping system and high yield variety of seeds manures, pesticides, new machineries, new technology. With using of so much new methods of farming, we produce more and more production. After increasing of production, the farmers will keep with them for their consumption, the rest they will sell in the market. So as the production go on increasing, industries has come up. Now agro-based industries are fully depends upon agricultural products. We can call raw materials which agriculture provides to the industries. And the industries, agro-based industries, are fully depends on agriculture. If the farmers refuse to give or produce raw materials to the industry will shut down. There will not be any further production for that particular industries, like cotton, sugar industries, factories. So industries are depend on agriculture product, and agriculture plays very important role. You know, students, in India the population go on increasing, but the agriculture land is the same, it's fixed. To cope up with the situation or to fulfill the market, the demand of the people in India, there are a lot of pressure on agriculture. So agriculture plays very important role in the form of employment, in the form of GDP. In primary sector, not only agriculture, in agriculture, crops and livestock, fishing, forestry, mineral and extraction, that's oil, and mining, coal and iron, all these things are come under primary sector. Now we talk about secondary sector. The secondary sector covers activities in which natural products are changed into other forms through way of manufacturing that we associate with the industrial activity. Secondary sector is also known as industrial sector because using of the raw material, industries will produce finished goods. This primary sector, secondary sector, both are dependent on each other. But how the primary sector depends on secondary? Here we can say secondary sector depends on primary. Primary sector depends on secondary sector. In the first primary, we have seen how the raw materials are supplied to industries for making finished goods. And the same way, as I gave example of the village Palampur in class 9th, the machinery, pump sets, manures, pesticides, and high yield variety of seeds, all these, the agriculture sector depends on secondary sector. Unless and until they get all these seeds, machinery, manure, pesticides, agriculture sector cannot produce good production or they cannot increase their production. So this way, these both sectors are depends on one another. It is the next step for after primary. It is the next step after primary. The product is not produced by nature, but it has to be made, and therefore some process of manufacturing is essential. This could be in a factory, a workshop, or at home. For example, using cotton fibers from the plants, we spin yarn and weave cloth. Using sugarcane as a raw material, we make sugar or gur. We convert earth into bricks and use bricks to make houses and buildings. Since this sector gradually become associated with the different kinds of industries that came up, it is also called the industrial sector. The next one is tertiary sector. There are activities that help in the development of primary and secondary sectors. These activities by themselves do not produce good, but they are an aid or a support for the production process. The tertiary sector helps both the sectors, without which it is not at all possible to function or to expand or to increase their production in time. I'll give you an example. Goods that are produced in the primary or secondary sector would need to be transported by trucks or by trains and sold in the wholesale and retail shops. At times, it may be necessary to store these in godowns when the agriculture production is more. The same day, you cannot sell in the market. It's not possible to consume all the production in a short period of time. There are perishable goods which you cannot keep it for long period of time. So you need like a pulses and other products like a potato, tomato, all these products you need to store in a cold storages. That too, the product should reach market and cold storage in time. That can be by trucks. See, the products which are produced in primary sector, the raw materials should bring to the industry, and the products which are produced in industry, that products should bring to the market, wholesale and wholesale to retail shops. So this activity take care by the tertiary sector. So tertiary sector plays a very important role. Otherwise we can call it a service sector also. If the service sector didn't bring the commodities in time from one place to another place, we will not get things in market. Service sector also includes some essential services that may not directly help in the production of goods. For example, doctors, engineers, teachers, information technology. Nowadays it plays a very important role in service sector. Communication, ATM booths, call centers and lawyers, cobblers, internet cafe, software companies and so on. All these sectors come under service sector. In service sector we can see banking sector and personal services like mechanic, judges, lawyers. In tourism sector, sun and beach, rural, cultural and transport, as we have seen earlier, aerial, maritime and trade. We can see internal trade, external trade. External trade again, export, imports, etc. Exports, imports, etc. So after seeing all these three activities, now I would like to make you understand through a small video clip.
Have you ever wondered how we obtain food, clothes and everything we need every day? Yes, exactly. They are obtained by working. Today, we are going to learn about jobs and how they are classified. Work is any activity that we carry out in exchange for a salary or benefit. From a job's perspective, society is divided into the active and the inactive or passive public. Jobs, depending on what they are like, are divided into three sectors: primary, secondary, and tertiary. So you understand it clearly, we are going to get to know them through milk. Milk is obtained from the farms where cows are. The farmer milks them and directly obtains the milk from them. This is the primary sector. Then the milk goes to a factory or industry where it undergoes a series of treatments and it is bottled. This is the secondary sector. And then these milk bottles are sent to the shop where they are sold, where we can buy them. This is the tertiary sector.
Children, comparing the three sectors, the various production activities in the primary sector and tertiary sector produce a very large number of goods and services. Also, the three sectors have a large number of people working in them to produce these goods and services. The next step therefore is to see how much goods and services are produced and how many people work in each sector. As we have seen previously, in agriculture sector, most of the people, more than 75% of the people are engaged in agriculture. And later when industries has come up and when there is no work in agriculture, the excess people, they have shifted to industrial sector. And after industrial revolution, most of the people were migrated from rural to cities and they start working in industries. And now after developing or after expanding industrial sector and primary agriculture sector, now the turn is for service sector. When both sectors are increased because of service sector. The next step therefore is to see how much goods and services are produced and how many people work in each sector. In an economy, there could be one or more sectors which are dominant in terms of total production and employment, while other sectors are relatively small in size. When we compare the three sectors, how to count the various goods and services produced? So children, as we have seen in previous chapter, it is not possible to count each and every produced, the goods 1, 2, 3, 4. Services we cannot count, we cannot see that. So we calculate with the value rather than goods and services. We count in values. The total number of goods, the value of total number of goods and services produced. And with that, we take precaution while doing so, because all the three sectors from 1, 2, 3 primary, secondary and tertiary sector, for example, a tomato a farmer selling for 10 rupees and industries they are buying the same tomato and they are making sauce, and that is selling in the market for 20 rupees and the retailer is the same product is selling for 25 rupees. See the three stages. First, tomato is selling for 10 rupees and then after manufacturing products he is selling for 20 rupees and ultimately the retailer in the shop you are buying for 25 rupees. It means the final products which produced, that amount need to be added or counting. We cannot count 10 plus 20 plus 25, it means 30 plus 25, 55 rupees. Instead, that is called problem of double counting, because ultimately the cost is 25 rupees only. So this you should keep in mind while calculating GDP, gross domestic product. Value of only final goods and services to be included in calculation, because value of intermediate goods already included. It occurs when we count the value of the same commodity more than once. So now we talk about, children, GDP, gross domestic product, which already we discussed. The sum of the value of final goods and services produced in all sectors during a particular year provides the total production in country is known as GDP. GDP shows how big the economy is. If a country's GDP is more, it means a country is developing or developed. So based on GDP, we can say the country's status. In India, the mammoth task of measuring GDP is undertaken by a central government ministry. This ministry, with the help of various government departments of all the Indian states and union territories, collects information relating to total volume of goods and services and their prices, and then estimates the GDP. See children, the trend has been changing. Like people's mindset has changed. Earlier, how the people were engaged in agriculture, now all are interested to work in factories and industries. How these three sectors, the changes takes place. Generally, it has been noticed from the histories of many now developed countries that at initial stages of development, primary sector was the most important sector of economic activity, as we have seen. Even today also, more than 75% more population are engaged in agriculture. The percentage you can see, more population are engaged in agriculture than other two sectors. Maybe other two sectors contribution in GDP is more compared to agriculture sector, but population are more engaged in agriculture. As the methods of farming changed, agriculture sector began to prosper. It produced much more food than before. Many people could now take up other activities. There were increasing number of craft persons and traders. Buying and selling activities increased many times. Besides, there were also transporters, administrators, RAVI, etc. However, at this stage, most of the goods produced were natural products from the primary sector, and most people were employed in this sector. Over a long time, more than 100 years, and especially because new methods of manufacturing were introduced, factories came up and started expanding. Those people who had earlier worked on farms now began in factories in large numbers. Because in farms, the work is very less and family members are more. So if all people are engaged in same field, output will not going to affect. So if some people come out from that farm, even though the production will remain the same. So that is why people started working in factories in large numbers. People began to use many more goods that were produced in factories at cheap rates. Secondary sector gradually became the most important in total production and employment. Hence, over time a shift had taken place. This means the importance of the sectors had changed. In the past 100 years, there has been a further shift from secondary to tertiary sector in developed countries. The service sector has become the most important in terms of total production. Most of the working people are also employed in the service sector. This is generally pattern observed in developed countries. Now we can see in the graph GDP by primary, secondary and tertiary sectors in 1973-74. 73-74 and compare with the 2013. In this 40 years, how the GDP contribution by these three sectors are changed. You can see in the graph, it shows the production of goods and services in three sectors, and this shows of 2 years like 73 and 2013, and we can see how the total production has grown over the 40 years. Primary sector, you can see 3 lakh crores, and second sector 1 lakh crore, and tertiary sector 2 lakhs. When you take after 40 years, a tremendous change. Like treasury sector 34 lakh crores contribution, whereas secondary 13 lakh crores. On the other hand, primary sector, it contributes only 9. So it doesn't mean that primary sector's GDP is not increased or secondary, both increased, but compared to tertiary sector, service sector, other two sectors are contribution is less. Over the 40 years, as we have seen now, so there could be several reasons for this service sector to become more important in India. In any country, several services such as hospitals, educational institutions, post and telegraph services, police stations, courts, village administrative offices, municipal corporations, defense, transport, banks, insurance companies, etc. are required. These can be considered as basic services. In a developing country, the government has to take responsibilities for the provisions of these services. Second one is the development of agriculture and industry leads to the development of services such as transport, trade, storage and the like. As we have already seen, greater the development of the primary and secondary sectors would be the demand for such services. And the third one is the income level rise. Certain sections of people start demanding many more services like eating out. And the trend has changed. People started working. People doesn't have time to cook food. So they come late from office and while coming they go. Otherwise at home also on the weekends they go out for eating. So the mindset has changed. Tourism, shopping, private hospitals, private schools, professional training, etc. You can see this change quite sharply in cities, especially in big cities. Over the past decade also, certain new series such as those based on information and communication technology have become important and essential. The production of these services has been rising rapidly. However, you must remember that not all of the service sector is growing equally well, because service sectors in India employ many different kinds of people. At one end, there are limited number of services that employ highly skilled and educated workers. On the other hand, there are a very large number of workers engaged in services such as small shopkeepers, repair persons, transport persons, etc. These people barely manage to earn a living, and yet they perform these services because there is no alternative opportunity to work are available to them. Hence only a part of this sector is growing in importance. Hope you understand the chapter. The rest we will see in the next class. Stay home, stay safe. Thank you.